Welcome back to WealthWise, the podcast where clarity meets strategy, helping you build not just a richer bank account, but a richer life. I'm your host, Sarah, and I'm thrilled you're tuning in. Today, we're diving deep into a subject that many ambitious, driven individuals often overlook until they're right in the thick of it. The true cost of peak success, when external achievements aren't enough. It's a crucial conversation, especially in a world that relentlessly pushes us to achieve more faster. By the end of this episode, our goal is for you to walk away with a clearer understanding of, number one, why the relentless pursuit of external validation and society's definition of success can often be a dangerous and unfulfilling trap. Number two, how you can start to redefine personal wealth and success on your own terms, looking far beyond just the financial numbers. And most importantly, some practical, actionable strategies to help you find that elusive balance between your ambition and your inner peace, starting from where you are right now. And to help us navigate this incredibly nuanced topic, I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our guest. He's a seasoned financial strategist and executive coach, and someone who has dedicated his career to helping business leaders and high achievers align their professional ambitions with personal fulfillment. Please welcome the insightful, the brilliant Max Wise. Max, welcome to WealthWise.
Sarah, thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and to talk about something so close to my heart.
Max, it's fantastic to have your expertise. Let's dive right in. We live in an era that, more than ever, seems to glorify hustle culture. Social media feeds are saturated with images of relentless work, overnight successes, and the outward trappings of achievement. Success for many is measured by this external highlight reel. But then we hear these incredibly raw and vulnerable stories from figures who have seemingly made it to the absolute pinnacle. I'm thinking of people like music mogul Scooter Braun, who built a literal billion-dollar empire, managing some of the biggest stars on the planet, yet has openly spoken about wearing a mask, feeling like a fraud at the top, and ultimately losing himself along the way. His journey and others like it really make you pause and ask, why is this topic, the hidden, often profound cost behind peak success, so frequently misunderstood or even downplayed, particularly for young, driven individuals who are passionately striving to make their mark on the world?
That's a fantastic and incredibly pertinent question, Sarah. And you're right. It's a paradox that trips up so many bright, capable people. I believe there are a few key interconnected factors at play here. Firstly, as you touched upon, there's the pervasive illusion perpetuated by social media, and to a larger extent, our cultural narratives. We are constantly bombarded with these highly curated, almost sanitized versions of success. We see the end results, the celebratory champagne toasts, the Forbes list features, the seemingly effortless confidence. What remains largely invisible are the grueling years of uncertainty, the countless rejections, the sleepless nights wrestling with self-doubt, the immense personal sacrifices concerning relationships and health, and the sheer emotional and mental toll it often takes to reach those heights. This creates a deeply distorted perception that success is a linear, glamorous ascent, which, as anyone who's been in the trenches can attest, is rarely, if ever, the reality. It's messy, it's challenging, and it's often lonely. Secondly, and this is a big one, society has historically championed a very narrow, and I would argue an outdated definition of success. For generations, success has been almost exclusively equated with tangible external markers: financial accumulation, power, status, titles, and public recognition. We don't talk nearly enough, or with the same reverence, about success in terms of genuine well-being, robust mental and emotional health, the quality and depth of our relationships, a profound sense of purpose, or the simple joy of living a life aligned with one's core values. So people, especially young people mapping out their futures, naturally gravitate towards chasing these conventional markers, sometimes only to discover years later that achieving them doesn't bring the fulfillment they expected if those other, more intrinsic aspects of a rich life are missing or had been sacrificed. And that leads directly to the third point, the common, often damaging misconceptions that young, ambitious individuals internalize. There's this pervasive narrative, almost a mantra in some circles, of I'll just grind it out now, sacrifice everything for the next 5, 10, 15 years, and then I'll be happy. Or I'll put my personal life, my health, my relationships on hold to build this brilliant future. But as you alluded to with stories like Scooter Braun's, his talk of decades spent running from his deepest fears, the immense guilt he carried regarding his artists, that later can come at an exorbitant, sometimes irreversible price. The brilliant future might arrive, but the person arriving there is a shadow of their former self, or the landscape of their life has changed so drastically that the success feels hollow. We're seeing this playing out in real time with alarming statistics. Look at the burnout rates among young professionals, Sarah. They're not just numbers. They represent real human suffering. We're witnessing a genuine mental health crisis linked directly to unsustainable work-related stress and the relentless, often self-imposed pressure to achieve more, be more, and have more. It's a silent epidemic in many high-pressure fields. I remember working with a young entrepreneur a couple of years ago. Let's call him Alex. He was the absolute poster child for hustle culture. By his late 20s, he'd co-founded a tech startup that was valued in the 7 figures. On paper, he was living the dream, the loft apartment, the fast car, the industry accolades. But when he first sat in my office, he was a ghost. He was on the verge of a complete physical and mental breakdown. His marriage was crumbling under the strain of his 100-hour work weeks. He hadn't had a genuine, unplugged vacation in over 5 years. And he confessed with tears in his eyes that he felt more anxious, isolated, and profoundly empty than he had ever felt when he was broke and just starting out. His exact words to me were, "Max, I climbed the ladder. I got to the top faster than I ever imagined. But I think I leaned my ladder against the completely wrong wall." That's a powerful and, unfortunately, increasingly common realization for many. And it's not just about burnout, it's also about misalignment. I had another client, let's call her Jessica, a truly brilliant marketing executive in a Fortune 500 company. She was a star performer, constantly exceeding targets, climbing the corporate ladder with impressive speed. She was chasing the promotions, the bigger titles, the salary bumps, primarily because that's what she thought she should want. That's what everyone around her defined as success. But internally, she felt a growing sense of unease, a deep misalignment. It wasn't until a significant health scare that forced her to hit the pause button that she finally allowed herself to ask the terrifying question, whose dream am I actually living? And is this success truly making me happy or healthy? That single question became the catalyst for a profound shift, not just in her career trajectory, but in her entire approach to life and what she valued. These aren't isolated incidents, Sarah. They are symptomatic of a broader cultural conversation we urgently need to have.
Wow, Max, those examples are incredibly poignant, and I'm sure they resonate deeply with many of our listeners, perhaps even in ways they haven't fully articulated to themselves yet. That feeling of climbing the ladder only to realize it's against the wrong wall, or chasing a dream that isn't truly your own, it's a powerful wake-up call. You've perfectly set the stage for why this conversation is not just important, but essential. It's clear that understanding these hidden costs and redefining success on our own terms is critical. So let's start to unpack that. I'm really keen to get into the core insights. How do we begin to identify these pitfalls, and what are the actionable steps we can take to build a version of success that is both ambitious and authentically fulfilling? Max, you've laid out a compelling case for why this topic is so critical, especially now. The stories of Alex and Jessica are stark reminders of how easily we can get caught in these cycles.
It really sets the stage for us to dig into the how. How do we navigate this complex terrain? So let's move into our core insights. I want to start with that concept of the mask you mentioned earlier, something Scooter Braun spoke about so openly, the Scooter persona versus Scott, his true self. Max, Scooter Braun talked about this mask he wore and his journey to rediscover himself. In the high-stakes worlds of finance, entrepreneurship, and demanding careers, just how prevalent is this phenomenon of wearing a success mask? And more importantly, what are the tangible financial and deeply personal consequences when people build their lives and identities around these external facades rather than their authentic selves?
Sarah, it's incredibly prevalent. I'd go as far as to say it's an epidemic in many professional circles, and it's become almost normalized. We live in a society that, for better or worse, often rewards appearances. The pressure to project an image of unwavering confidence, constant achievement, and material success is immense, especially amplified by the highlight reels we see on social media. It's the fake it till you make it mantra taken to an extreme, where the faking it becomes a permanent fixture. People wear these masks for a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it stems from a deep-seated fear of not being enough, a belief that their authentic self isn't successful or impressive enough for the world. Other times, it's driven by a desire for acceptance, status, or to fit into a particular corporate or social mold. And often, it's simply a misunderstanding of what true, sustainable success actually looks and feels like. They're chasing a script written by someone else's. Now, let's talk about the consequences because they are very real and can be devastating both financially and personally. Financially, wearing a success mask often leads to what we call lifestyle inflation, driven by external validation rather than genuine need or affordability. This is where you see individuals buying the luxury car they can't quite afford, stretching for the oversized house in the right neighborhood, or constantly acquiring the latest designer goods, not because these things bring them intrinsic joy, but because they believe these are the necessary props to maintain their image of success. This isn't about enjoying the fruits of your labor, it's about signaling. This can and often does lead to a dangerous spiral of unnecessary debt. Credit cards get maxed out, personal loans are taken, all to fund a lifestyle that's essentially a performance. I've seen people making six-figure salaries who are effectively living paycheck to paycheck, trapped by the high cost of maintaining their facade. They have golden handcuffs, forged by their own image. It can also lead to poor financial and investment decisions, to appear savvy, or to chase quick wins that reinforce their image of being a high flyer. They might jump into highly speculative investments without due diligence, or follow trends just to be part of the in crowd, leading to significant losses. The pressure to always appear successful can cloud judgment and risk assessment. Perhaps most insidiously, this financial pressure keeps them chained to high-paying but soul-crushing jobs. They might despise their work, feel completely misaligned with their company's values, or be deeply unhappy. But the thought of downsizing their image, of admitting they can't sustain the facade, is terrifying. So they stay stuck, trading their well-being for the upkeep of the mask. Then on the personal front, the consequences are just as, if not more, profound. The most common outcome is a pervasive sense of emptiness and inauthenticity. This is exactly what Scooter Braun described, feeling like a fraud even at the pinnacle of his success. When your external life is a carefully constructed performance, there's a constant, gnawing disconnect from your true self. You achieve the goal, but it feels hollow because it wasn't your goal. This constant performance creates immense anxiety and stress. The fear of being found out, of the mask slipping, is exhausting. It takes a huge amount of energy to uphold a false front, energy that could be channeled into genuine growth and connection. And over time, this leads to a gradual erosion of connection with one's authentic self, their core values, and their genuine passions. The things that once lit them up get buried under the weight of expectations. It also impacts relationships. When you're wearing a mask, you attract people who are drawn to the mask, not to the real you. This can lead to superficial connections and a deep sense of loneliness, even when surrounded by people. It's hard to build genuine intimacy when you're not showing your true self. I remember working with a senior executive. Let's call him David. David was the epitome of corporate success. Expensive suits, a corner office, a luxury car, a prestigious address. He hosted lavish parties and always had the right opinions. But behind closed doors, he confessed to me that he was drowning in debt from trying to maintain this image. He hadn't had a genuine laugh in years, and his marriage was strained because his wife felt she didn't know him anymore. He was terrified of anyone discovering that his carefully curated life was built on a very shaky foundation. He was stuck in a job he no longer enjoyed simply because it funded the mask. It took a significant health scare for him to finally confront the cost of his performance and begin the difficult journey of dismantling it. It was painful, but ultimately liberating for him.
That's a very powerful illustration, Max. The idea of golden handcuffs forged by our own image is chilling. It really underscores how this isn't just about appearances, it's about our financial health and our fundamental well-being. So what's the takeaway here? If someone listening recognizes themselves in David's story or feels that weight of the mask, what's a guiding principle for them?
It's this, Sarah. When you stop trying to impress others, you start having the resources, financial, mental, and emotional, to invest in yourself. That shift from external validation to internal valuation is the first crucial step.
That's a fantastic pivot point, Max. Investing in oneself. Now, let's talk about ambition itself. Ambition is often lauded, seen as a driving force for achievement. But Scooter Braun also touched on the guilt he carried and mentioned 20 years of running, presumably from his fears or perhaps from the consequences of his ambition. This brings to mind the concept of an ambition tax. Can you elaborate on what these hidden, often invisible costs of relentless ambition truly are? And critically, how can our listeners, especially those in the throes of building their careers, start to recognize these costs before they become overwhelming?
Absolutely. Ambition tax is a very apt term, Sarah, because just like any tax, it's a price you pay. And often, it's levied silently, accumulating over time until the bill comes due, sometimes with devastating interest. It's crucial to understand that this tax isn't just monetary. It extracts a toll across multiple dimensions of your life. Let's break down some of these primary costs. First, there's the tax on your time. This is perhaps the most obvious, yet often the most undervalued. Ambition, especially in its unchecked form, is voracious. It demands more hours at the office, more weekends sacrificed, more events missed. This isn't just time away from leisure. It's time lost with loved ones, partners, children, aging parents, friends. It's time not spent on hobbies that rejuvenate you, on rest that restores you, or on quiet reflection that grounds you. And time, as we all know, is the one resource we can never get back. Second, and closely related, is the tax on your health, both physical and mental. The hustle culture often glorifies sleep deprivation, surviving on caffeine and adrenaline, and pushing through exhaustion as badges of honor. But our bodies and minds are not machines. This relentless drive without adequate recovery leads to chronic stress. Chronic stress, in turn, is a precursor to a host of physical ailments, compromised immunity, digestive issues, cardiovascular problems. Mentally and emotionally, it manifests as anxiety, depression, emotional numbness, and, of course, the pervasive modern ailment of burnout. Scooter's 20 years of running speaks volumes about the potential for deep-seated mental health struggles that can fester beneath a veneer of success. The pressure to constantly perform, to never show weakness, can be incredibly isolating and damaging.
Third, there's the tax on your values and ethics. In the hyper-competitive race to the top, the pressure to win can sometimes lead to compromises. It might start small, a white lie here, a slightly bent rule there. But over time, these small deviations can erode one's moral compass. The win-at-all-costs mentality can blur the lines between right and wrong, leading individuals to make decisions they later regret, creating a sense of internal dissonance or, as Scooter mentioned, guilt. Finally, there's the tax on joy and passion. Ironically, many people embark on ambitious paths fueled by a genuine passion for their work. But when the pursuit becomes relentless, when it's all about hitting the next target, the next promotion, the next financial milestone, that initial spark can be extinguished. The passion devolves into a grueling obligation, a chore. The very thing that once brought joy becomes a source of dread. So, how do you recognize these costs before they escalate? It's about cultivating self-awareness and paying attention to the warning signs. These signs can be persistent fatigue and classic burnout symptoms, cynicism about your work, feeling detached or emotionally blunted, a sense of inefficacy despite your efforts, feeling constantly overwhelmed. Even small tasks feel like a monumental effort. Your stress response is on a hair trigger. A noticeable loss of interest in things you previously enjoyed. Hobbies get shelved, social invitations are declined, you feel a general sense of apathy. Physical symptoms, frequent headaches, digestive problems, recurrent colds or infections, unexplained aches and pains. Your body is often the first to signal that something is amiss. Strained relationships, more arguments, a feeling of distance from loved ones, defensiveness, or a sense of being perpetually misunderstood. And that nagging, persistent feeling of, is this all there is? Despite achieving external markers of success, a sense of emptiness or meaninglessness. An increased reliance on coping mechanisms that are ultimately unhealthy, more alcohol, comfort eating, excessive shopping, mindless scrolling, anything to numb the discomfort. A powerful example I often share is that of a startup founder I coached. Let's call her Maria. Maria was brilliant, driven, and her company was a darling of the tech scene, securing significant funding. She was working 100-hour weeks fueled by caffeine and the thrill of creation. Externally, she was a massive success. Internally, she was crumbling. Her health was deteriorating. She developed chronic insomnia and anxiety attacks. Her long-term relationship had ended because, as her ex-partner put it, she was married to her company. One day, she broke down in my office, confessing she hadn't felt genuine joy in over 2 years. The ambition tax had bankrupted her well-being. It took a serious wake-up call for her to begin reassessing what success truly meant and to start clawing back her life piece by piece.
The way you've broken down the ambition tax is incredibly illuminating, Max. It's so much more than just being tired. It's a holistic depletion. The example of Maria is a stark reminder of that. What's the core message here for someone who might be recognizing some of those warning signs in their own life?
The core message is this, Sarah. Ambition is powerful fuel. But without a clear map of your core values and non-negotiables, you can easily drive straight into a dead end. Your ambition needs to serve your life, not the other way around.
Ambition is fuel, but without a map of your values, you can drive straight into a dead end. That's a very potent thought, Max. It leads us perfectly into our next crucial area. We've talked about the masks and the taxes. Now let's talk about the shift. Scooter Braun made some significant changes. Stepping away from day-to-day music management, the very thing that defined his public persona, and navigating a very public divorce, which he said saved his life. These are monumental turning points. For our listeners who might be feeling that misalignment, that heavy weight of the mask or the ambition tax, how can they begin to identify the need for their own turning points? And more critically, how can they summon the courage to actually make those changes, especially when it might mean stepping off a path that, at least on paper, looks financially attractive or conventionally successful?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it, Sarah? And it's where the real work, the transformative work, begins. Identifying the need for a turning point and then acting on it requires both introspection and immense courage. Recognizing the need often doesn't happen overnight. It's usually a gradual dawning, or sometimes it's precipitated by a crisis, what I call a graceful rock bottom. This could be a health scare, like David's, a relationship breakdown, like Maria's or Scooter's, a professional setback, or simply that profound, unshakable feeling of emptiness despite external achievements that Alex experienced. The whispers of discontent that you've been ignoring for months or even years suddenly become shouts that are impossible to ignore. You reach a point where the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. But we don't have to wait for a crisis. The more proactive approach involves cultivating the power of consistent, honest self-reflection. This isn't a one-time thing. It's a practice. It means regularly carving out quiet time to ask yourself some deep, sometimes uncomfortable questions. Like, what truly matters to me deep down, beyond societal pressures or what others expect of me? What does success genuinely look and feel like for me at this specific stage of my life? Has that definition evolved? If I weren't afraid of failure, of judgment, of financial insecurity, of letting people down, what choices would I make right now? And what am I willing to trade in pursuit of my goals? And what are my absolute non-negotiables, the things I won't sacrifice under any circumstances? Am I living in alignment with my core values, or is there a growing gap? Tools like journaling, meditation, spending time in nature, working with a therapist or a coach, these can all facilitate this crucial introspective process. It's about creating space to hear your own inner voice, which often gets drowned out by the noise of daily life and external demands. Once you start to get clarity on what needs to change, the next big hurdle is summoning the courage to act. This is where building what I call a freedom fund becomes paramount. And I want to be clear, this isn't just about money, though that's an important component. It's a multi-dimensional safety net. Number one, financial freedom fund. Absolutely. Having a financial cushion, say 6 to 12 months of living expenses saved up, significantly reduces the fear associated with making a big change, like leaving a job or starting a new venture. It gives you runway, breathing room to explore without immediate financial panic. This is practical and non-negotiable for most big shifts. Number two, skills freedom fund. This involves continuously investing in yourself by diversifying your skill set, embracing lifelong learning, and making yourself adaptable. The more versatile you are, the less reliant you become on a single job, industry, or income stream. This builds confidence in your ability to navigate new paths. Number three, network freedom fund. And I mean a genuine network, Sarah, not just LinkedIn connections, but cultivating authentic relationships with mentors, supportive peers, and friends who know and champion your authentic self, not just your successful persona. This support system is invaluable when you're navigating uncertainty and doubt. They can offer perspective, encouragement, and practical help. And number four, mindset freedom fund. This is about developing emotional resilience, self-compassion, and the courage to embrace uncertainty as a part of growth. It's about reframing failure not as an endpoint, but as a data point, a learning opportunity. It's understanding that stepping back, pivoting, or choosing a less conventional path isn't a demotion, but a courageous act of recalibration towards a more authentic life. Making the leap itself is rarely a dramatic overnight jump off a cliff. More often, it's a series of small, intentional, courageous steps. It might start with exploring a passion project on the side, taking a course in a new field, having honest conversations with your loved ones about your desire for change, or volunteering to test the waters in a different environment. Each small step builds momentum and confidence for the next. Let me give you an example that ties this together. I worked with a highly successful marketing director. Let's call her Chloe. She was earning a fantastic salary, had all the external trappings, but felt increasingly unfulfilled and burned out. Through a period of intense self-reflection, triggered by missing yet another important family event due to work, she realized that her core values were actually creative autonomy, deeper human connection in her work, and more time for her young family, things that her current high-pressure corporate role simply couldn't offer. So she didn't just quit. She strategically built her freedom fund. She aggressively saved for a year. She started taking on small freelance creative projects in her evenings and weekends, building her skills and portfolio, Skills Freedom Fund. She reconnected with former colleagues and mentors who had made similar transitions, Network Freedom Fund. And she worked with a coach to challenge her fears and limiting beliefs about success, Mindset Freedom Fund. After about 18 months, she made the transition to full-time freelance creative consulting. Yes, her initial income dipped, but her sense of fulfillment, her health, and the quality of her family life skyrocketed. She essentially redesigned her career to fit her life, rather than contorting her life to fit her career. This is akin to Scooter Braun finding Scott again. It's a deliberate, courageous move towards a more integrated and authentic version of success. It's about recognizing that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to redefine what winning looks like for you.
That journey Chloe undertook, Max, is so inspiring because it feels so actionable. It's not about just waiting for a crisis or making a rash decision, but a strategic, thoughtful reclamation of one's life. The multidimensional freedom fund concept is particularly powerful. It really frames courage not just as an emotion, but as something you can proactively build. What's the essential truth our listeners should hold on to from this part of our conversation?
The essential truth is this, Sarah. Daring to let go of a success that no longer fits you is the first, most crucial step toward achieving a success that truly, deeply does. It's not about giving up, it's about leveling up to a more authentic version of yourself.
Max, this entire conversation has been incredibly insightful, peeling back the layers on what success truly means. We've talked about the societal pressures, the masks we wear, the ambition tax, and the courageous act of redefining our paths. These concepts are powerful, but they often hit home hardest when we see them through the lens of personal experience. So I'd love to ask you, drawing from your own journey in the world of finance and advising others, was there a particular moment, perhaps a financial decision or a period in your career where pursuing those conventional standards of success led to a significant misstep, a memorable failure, or conversely, a profound breakthrough in your own thinking, something that really shifted your perspective, much like the turning point Scooter Braun described?
That's a great question, Sarah. And yes, there absolutely was. It's funny, as a financial strategist, people often assume you've had this perfectly linear, calculated path. But the truth is, some of the most valuable lessons come from those moments when things don't go according to plan, or when you achieve what you thought you wanted, only to find it lacking. For me, this happened relatively early in my career. I came out of university, ambitious, driven, and like many young people in finance, I had a very clear, almost tunnel-visioned idea of what success looked like. It was a specific number in my investment portfolio. It was a particular job title that sounded impressive at dinner parties. It was the external validation that I was making it. So I threw myself into it. I mean, I really threw myself into it. We're talking 70, 80-hour work weeks constantly. My health took a back seat. Nutrition was whatever was quick. Sleep was a luxury. Exercise was a distant memory. My relationships, particularly with friends outside of the intense finance bubble, started to fray. I was always too busy, always on a deadline. I told myself it was a temporary sacrifice, that once I hit that number or got that title, then I'd have time for everything else. Then I'd be happy. Then I'd be successful. And Sarah, I did it. I hit the financial target I'd set for myself earlier than I anticipated. I got the promotion with the fancy title. I had all the external markers I'd been chasing. And I remember the day I looked at my brokerage account, saw the number I'd obsessed over for years, and I felt nothing. Well, not nothing. It was worse than nothing. It was this profound, hollow emptiness, a sense of, is this it? Is this what I sacrificed all that for? There was no parade, no sudden influx of joy. In fact, I felt more stressed and anxious than ever because now the new pressure was to maintain it, to grow it even further, to keep up the appearance of this successful person I had supposedly become. I was on a hedonic treadmill, and the speed just kept increasing. That emptiness was terrifying. It was a complete cognitive dissonance because my entire belief system about success had just crumbled. I had played the game, won by the conventional rules, and found the prize to be utterly unsatisfying. It was a genuine crisis of meaning for me. I felt like a fraud, not because I hadn't achieved, but the achievement itself felt fraudulent in its promise of fulfillment. That was my rock bottom in a way, not a financial rock bottom, but an existential one. And it forced me, truly forced me, to stop and ask those hard questions we talked about earlier. What did I actually value? What did a rich life, not just a rich bank account, look like to me? What was the point of all this ambition if it didn't lead to genuine well-being and connection? The breakthrough came not in a single lightning bolt, but in a slow, deliberate process of dismantling that old definition of success and rebuilding a new one, brick by brick. It involved reconnecting with my health, investing time in relationships I'd neglected, exploring interests outside of finance that actually brought me joy, and crucially, redefining my work not just as a means to accumulate wealth, but as a vehicle for impact and for helping others navigate these very same complexities. The biggest lesson from that entire period, Sarah, was that true wealth isn't just about what you accumulate. It's about who you become in the process and how aligned your external life is with your internal values. Chasing a number or a title as an end in itself is a fool's errand if it disconnects you from yourself and what truly matters. That experience fundamentally reshaped how I approach not only my own life and finances, but also how I advise my clients. It taught me that the balance sheet of a life well lived includes far more than just financial assets.
Max, thank you for sharing that so openly. Your personal story is a powerful testament to the themes we've been discussing, and that lesson about true wealth encompassing more than just numbers is incredibly resonant. It's clear that our understanding of success and wealth is evolving, perhaps now more rapidly than ever. Looking ahead then and considering these evolving perspectives, especially after hearing stories like yours and reflecting on the broader societal shifts, if you had to pinpoint one significant trend or shift in how we approach our careers, our finances, or our investments over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, that you believe will fundamentally define or redefine financial success and personal well-being, what would that be?
That's a fascinating question to ponder, Sarah, particularly in light of this deeper conversation about the true costs of conventional success. If I were to bet on one overarching shift, I'd say it's the continued and accelerating rise of what I call holistic wealth or integrated wealth. We're moving, albeit slowly in some quarters, away from a purely quantitative definition of wealth, how much money you have, towards a more qualitative, multi-dimensional understanding. This isn't to say that financial stability and growth aren't important. They absolutely are. They provide security, options, and the ability to make choices. But they are increasingly being seen as one component of a larger wealth picture rather than the sole defining factor. What does holistic wealth entail? It means that individuals, especially the younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, who are now shaping the workforce and consumer trends, are increasingly prioritizing and valuing, 1, mental and emotional well-being as a core asset. There's a growing recognition that no amount of money can compensate for chronic stress, anxiety, or burnout. People are actively seeking careers, workplaces, and lifestyles that support their mental health, not detract from it. Companies that foster psychological safety, offer mental health resources, and promote a healthy work-life integration will win the war for talent. Individuals will increasingly make financial and career decisions that prioritize peace of mind. 2, flexibility and autonomy.
The pandemic accelerated this, but the desire for greater control over how, when, and where work gets done is a powerful and enduring trend. This isn't just about remote work. It's about structuring a life where work fits around other important priorities, family, personal development, health, rather than the other way around. Financial success will be increasingly linked to the freedom to design one's life. 3. Priority and impact. People, particularly younger generations, want to feel that their work contributes to something larger than themselves. They are looking for alignment between their personal values and the mission of the organizations they work for or invest in. The purpose economy is real. Financial returns are still crucial, but there's a growing desire for those returns to be generated in a way that is ethically sound and socially responsible. We'll see more emphasis on sustainable investing, impact investing, and supporting businesses that prioritize people and planet alongside profit. So for individuals, achieving financial success in the next 3 to 5 years will mean more than just hitting a net worth target. It will mean crafting a life where their financial resources support these broader elements of well-being. It might mean choosing a slightly lower-paying job that offers incredible flexibility and purpose over a high-stress, high-paying role that depletes them. It might mean investing in companies that align with their ethical framework, even if the purely financial upside is marginally less. For companies and financial advisors, this means we need to adapt. The old models focused purely on maximizing financial return are becoming insufficient. We need to help people build financial plans that support their whole life, their holistic wealth. Those who fail to grasp this shift will find themselves increasingly out of touch with the evolving aspirations of their clients and employees. It's a more complex, but ultimately a much more human and fulfilling way to think about wealth and success.
Holistic wealth. I love that framework, Max. It feels like such a necessary and empowering evolution from the narrower definitions of the past. The idea that financial resources should support our whole life, not just one facet of it, is a powerful takeaway. Max, this has been an incredibly rich and thought-provoking conversation, from dissecting the success mask and the often unseen ambition tax to your own powerful personal story and that forward-looking vision of holistic wealth. You've given us so much to consider and, more importantly, so much to act upon. The journey to redefine success is deeply personal, but I hope today's episode has provided some clarity and perhaps some courage for anyone out there feeling that pull towards a more authentic and fulfilling path. It's about understanding that true wealth isn't just about financial accumulation, but about alignment, well-being, and purpose. So if today's episode of WealthWise resonated with you, if it sparked an idea, a question, or a new perspective, we'd love it if you could do 3 simple things. Number 1, share this episode. Think of one friend, colleague, or family member who is on their own journey of building their career and financial future. Someone who might benefit from hearing this conversation about the true cost of success and the power of redefining it. A simple share can make a big difference. Number 2, subscribe to WealthWise. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe or follow button on your favorite podcast app. We bring you these kinds of insightful conversations and actionable strategies every single week, and we wouldn't want you to miss out on future breakthroughs. Number 3, let us know your thoughts. We genuinely love hearing from our listeners. What was your biggest takeaway from today? Is there a topic you'd love for us to explore in a future episode? Drop us a comment or a review. Your feedback helps us make WealthWise even better. MaxWise, thank you once again for your incredible wisdom, your vulnerability, and for sharing your invaluable insights with the WealthWise community today. It's been an absolute privilege.
The pleasure was all mine, Sarah. Thank you for facilitating such a meaningful discussion.
And to all of you listening, thank you for investing your time with us. As you go about your week, remember this: financial freedom isn't just a dream you chase. It's a series of strategic choices you make, aligned with who you truly are and what you deeply value. Success in its richest form isn't just about the destination you reach, but profoundly about the person you become on the journey there. Until next time, stay wise, stay well, and keep building that richer life.